So tell me about the concept of Laughology.
It all started, well, more than 20 years ago. It's a combination of laughter and psychology.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is my background's in stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
But I'm also a psychologist.
Yeah.
And the reason why I got into stand-up comedy is, well, I didn't do very well at school.
Okay.
So I was suspended and expelled.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's quite naughty, Tracy. And the reason for that is I'm dyslexic.
I see.
And it wasn't really a thing at school. So I was lazy and naughty.
Yeah.
And I'd be asked to read stuff out. And quite early on, I realised I probably struggled a little bit more than the other kids. Didn't realise why.
Yeah.
But I also realised that people would laugh at me if I got words wrong. So if I would deliberately get stuff wrong, I could make people laugh.
Oh, I see.
And that was more beneficial to me. And I realised I quite liked that.
Yeah.
And so that followed me around a bit, got me into trouble.
Yeah.
I upped the stakes to get the laughter, usually at the teacher's expense. Apologies to my teachers.
If anyone's watching.
Yes. And eventually, got suspended and expelled. But I had one teacher who was curious, and that's all it takes. And they lent in to find out what was going on with me, because a behaviour is always the output of the way we're feeling.
Yeah.
We can't express that all the time as children. And there was all this stuff going on at home, Mum was separating as well from her second marriage. And so that teacher got me into performing arts, and that changed my world.
Oh, wow.
Got me into stand-up comedy when I was at performing arts school.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Absolutely loved it, because it's the one place people respected me, and I hadn't had that at school. And people were like, wow, you do that. But for me, it's just something that's very normal. And then I took stand-up into schools to help young people like me with their reading and writing skills, because I thought there's something in this. And amazingly, these kids who had been given up on, they connected with learning completely differently. So I thought there's something in this. Humour connects the brain with learning in a completely different way.
Yeah.
So I went back to university when I realised I'm not thick. I just learn really differently.
Yeah.
And actually that's my superpower, because I simplify stuff.
Yeah.
And I did a master's in psychology with a real emphasis on how humour works in the brain, how it helps us to think differently, learn differently, have different relationships, how it can help us be happy. And started Laughology 20 years ago. No one's found me out yet. This might be the point. now we're making sense of it.
Yeah.
And here I am.
So let's rewind a little bit. I'm fascinated by the stand-up comedy. Talk me through that.
Well, when I started, so I was 19, 20 when I started.
That's very brave, Steph.
People say that, but I'm just a show-off.
Really?
Tracy. Yeah.
Did you really enjoy
me an
it?
Audience. I love it, and I come alive. But I was good at it.
Yeah.
Well, watched the first few shows. I probably was. I died terribly. But I had lots of friends and family come who would just laugh at the right points.
Yeah.
But also back then, being a woman, and not just being a woman, being a young woman.
I was going to say 19.
And
That's young to get on the
20.
stage and make a room of people laugh.
And generally to a male audience.
Yeah.
And I was told you can't be pretty and funny. I was told not to wear skirts. I was told you don't look like a comedian. We can't have a woman on tonight because we've had a woman on this month.
Oh, my goodness.
All kinds of stuff like that. So it made me super tough.
I was just going to say, how did that impact your resilience? Must have improved it.
Yeah, massively so.
Because you didn't give up.
No, that's it. Yeah. The only way to get good at comedy is to die and to be in front of people. You can't rehearse comedy.
Yeah.
You can write it in your bedroom and you think that's hilarious, and you might tell it to friends and family and they laugh because they like you.
Yeah.
But in front of an audience, that's the only way you can tell. So you've got to be super resilient and also quick at changing it on the spot.
On the spot, yeah. Again, in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
So slow it down for me. The connection then from the stand-up to helping children learn, talk me through that.
Well, I was going to different venues and gigs all around the UK. And what I found is it's really important to get to a venue or a place and read the local news and find out a little bit about that place.
Okay.
So before the internet, before you go on and look stuff up. And So I wanted to learn to read and write properly because I was writing comedy.
Yeah.
And quite early on, I was really lucky. I won a competition to do a BBC4 sketch show. So was writing with them, and they really helped me. And because I was engaged with something and I enjoyed it and it made me laugh.
Yeah.
Then I wanted to learn to read and write. So I thought, well, there's something in this. And when you very first start stand-up, you don't get paid, you know.
Yeah, I bet, yeah. It's tough.
And as a woman particularly, you don't get paid at all. So I had to do something. And I wrote to the local education authority 20 years ago more, when they used to have money.
Yeah.
And I said, I've got this idea to do stand-up in schools. Is there a grant or anything like that I can apply for? And they said yes. So I applied for this grant. I won it and started delivering stand-up in schools as a way. And it was really successful.
What ages? Primary, senior?
Generally secondary.
Okay.
And anything from year 7 all the way up to year 12. And quite a lot of young people who perhaps were deemed the naughty people, and I don't like to use that term, but that was, you know, or needed special educational needs, and right through to people who were college goers and just wanted to develop their performance or communication skills.
So what did your set involve? Because obviously you're not delivering to, you know, adult males now, you know, sort of late into the evening. These are impressionable school children. So what was your set all about?
Well, I had to be really careful.
I was going to say.
And generally it was training them in stand-up comedy. So it was about giving them the skills of how to write comedy, present, stand up. And I would use examples of how a routine could be structured, but I had to be really careful. So I had to choose stuff carefully. I do remember once being hauled in front of a head teacher and, well, not hauled, but having that feeling because I was naughty at school and think, oh my goodness, I've been naughty again. As I sat outside the head teacher's office, and all it was he said, look, you know, we've had kids go back really excited, talk to their parents phone in saying, well, what's going on? And they've said this story. And I'm like, okay, so I can't say that.
Okay, yeah.
But they loved it.
What did it do for the kids? What was the feedback that you were getting?
What was really interesting is it was about confidence.
Yeah.
Their confidence had been completely knocked because they've been given up on by their school or their teachers.
Yeah.
And look, teachers have a really tough time because it's difficult when you've got a room full of 30 and you've got 2 or 3 that are playing up. So I'm not blaming anybody, but we give up on children too early, and we don't understand that behind every behaviour is a feeling or an experience that's going on. That's the output to express how we feel. Yeah. And we're not born bad. But these kids, you know, they'd been given up on by their teachers, then they were taken out of class. And so they were isolated, and it was about getting them to be confident again. And these kids who the teachers hadn't seen do something that they thought was good, suddenly these kids were standing up and doing routines on a stage, because at the end of their 3 or 4 week comedy workshop that I'd run, they do a performance in front of their own peers and parents.
Wow, look at that.
And these were kids who people had given up on. And so the kids, they had a confidence because people were going, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And so it gave them something, but also teachers saw them in a different light. So it built those relationships. And then people laughed with them, not at them. And there's a key difference.
There is a massive difference there. What I love about you, Steph, is that you personally are then developing this link. You're now thinking, hang on a minute, I've taken it into schools and it really works. So then you take it upon yourself to go to university. And what degree did you do, or what did you?
So I did a master's in the psychology of humour and laughter.
Goodness me. I mean, that's no short course. What's that, 3 years, 4 years?
I think it was 3 years in the end because it was elongated because of my dyslexia, and the University of Chester were amazing. Really? They let me present some of my findings and present some of my thesis as well. But yeah, it was it was a big thing for me to go back and do an academic degree, because my first degree was in performing arts, It was interpretive dance that I did my dissertation through. I could do this whole thing through interpretive dance.
Yeah.
So it was a real big thing for me to do.
Well, with dyslexia, to then embark on a written course, loads of reading. I mean, I know, having done law, all the reading that needs to be done at university must have been really difficult. Did you ever find during the course, I've bitten off too much that I can chew here?
Yeah. And I had a great tutor who he was just brilliant at breaking it down for me. And I was diagnosed actually at that university.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I didn't
up until
know.
that point, you still didn't know?
Yeah, I didn't know. I just thought I found it really difficult.
Yeah.
And I can't even remember how I got in touch with the University of Chester. I think I was doing something else and they got in touch with me and I did a workshop for them.
Yeah.
And they said, are you interested in doing a master's? And I was like, I can't do that. That's not me. And I had this conversation with them about it.
Given that I'm a family lawyer,
yes,
I can't let you go without drilling down into marriage and divorce and how laughter can help there. So by the time people come to see me, they're not already filling out the divorce petition. Some of them are. Some of them are, I'm just thinking about it, Trace. We haven't been happy for a while. And I just want to know my legal position. If I were to pull the pin, what's this going to cost me? What am I going to lose? How do you think laughter helps there? Or is it too late to save them?
I mean, every single separation is different.
Is different. No, I get that,
So we can't say yes, it can, or no, it can't. But laughter is a really important part of any marriage. And it is one of the things that goes, because it might be that we have children, we have jobs, and we forget to make that time for each other.
Yeah.
And really thinking about, okay, do I want to save this marriage? Is it something that's going to be healthy for both of us? I think that's really key.
Yeah.
And are we both happy to try?
Yeah.
And if we are, that idea of playfulness, spending time together, getting back that laughter is really important. And laughter is the language of love. I always talk about that, because what happens when we very first fall in love is the brain just gets blinded by all the beautiful neurotransmitters that are flooding us. Oxytocin, is flooding the brain, and it's making us blind to the little sniffs, the nuances, the breathing.
I'm going to say the heavy breathing.
Does my husband always breathe that loudly, or is that just since lockdown? I'm just like, what? Where did that come from? Just the being by us. And so all those things, once the oxytocin starts to calm down, that's what becomes really apparent. What laughter does is it can boost that oxytocin again. And when I laugh with you or with my husband or you laugh with your partner, there's something called mirror neurons in the brain. I don't know why I'm doing that. Because if you have a brain that looks like that, you've got a problem. I'd go and see somebody. That's really silly. But the reason why I do that is because it's like the brain's Wi-Fi. And what happens is my mirror neurons, they light up when you laugh because I've laughed.
Yes.
And brains that fire together, wire together. And that's a really nice saying. But what it actually means is because we've laughed together, we're creating a neurochemical release together that actually glues our relationship a little bit more. And that stuff's really important, and to proactively think about how we do that, because we get busy and that's the stuff that goes.
My next question was going to be just on that. When do you think the laugh, from your experience and what you've seen working with couples, when do you think the laughter starts to fade, and why do you think it starts to fade?
So everyone's different, but it is usually after those... Once you move in together and you've stopped making that time to explicitly see each other and enjoy each other's company, because moving in together, you've got house bills. I always say, at some point, you'll have to do a big shop together, and you'll argue about it. You'll have a big row at some point, and one of you will have a big poo, and leave something in the toilet, and you'll have to clean it up. And so the magic starts to go because you see the reality. And that can be depending on, if you moved in together, or some people don't ever move in together, but, couples that perhaps see each other for a long period of time. And so making sure that you have those moments of laughter, of playfulness from the start, but you carry that on. People call it date night, or even really making that time for the fun stuff, talking about past memories, things that you did when you first got together. And even laughing at yourself, that's really important.
Yeah. I must admit, I do find that key. My marriage is 35 years long, and I don't think I've ever analysed it in that way, i.e. laughing at myself. But hearing you say that, we do a lot of that. I will take the mickey out of myself because I've done something that is a blue job, let's say, and I've done it really badly. Brendan's very precious about his bins, and I'm always messing up the system. I'm very precious about the laundry room. For those that follow me on Instagram, you'll know that because I'm always in there.
There's a way to fold towels, isn't
Absolutely.
there? And there's a way. I get you. My husband cannot. I'm like, don't even fold them.
Just step away from the towels.
Step away from the towels. We've got levels and everything.
But would you say that humour can help de-escalate an argument?
Yeah. And it all depends on your relationship and what you've had already. We've always had a good sense of humour, me and my husband, and it sounds like you have. And so when I am getting irritated by the little things, he'll either throw in something or I'll throw in something that relates to what you call in humour a callback. So a callback is something that's happened previously that you found funny, and then you call it back.
Okay.
And it gives you what I call a humour trigger.
Yeah.
So it gives you that response again. Now, when you know someone really well, you can do that because you know where the temperature is. And it all depends on how far the argument and what's going on. Menopausal women. Yeah. My husband's, I think he's stepped back a little bit from the humour part. There's certain things he can't be humorous about. Are you on the menopause? Don't go there. So, yes, is the answer, but it's got to be used carefully.
Yeah. You've mentioned a couple of times, Steph, the importance of laughing with somebody and not at somebody. Explain that difference there.
This is really important, especially at the moment. There's a lot of talk about banter, especially in the workplace. And one of our big workshops that we're doing at the moment is called It's Only Banter, and how that's changing. When we laugh with somebody, we are creating a story together. And there's certain rules that apply, especially when we are talking about workplaces. It's not about the protected characteristics. Don't go there and make jokes. When you're in a relationship, it's about making sure that person's in on the joke. They're part of it. When the person is the butt of the joke, that's when it's wrong. When you're laughing at them and you're making them be the one who is at the end of that joke, that's not fine, and that's not fair, and it's not kind.
Making them almost feel stupid or silly.
Yeah, and that can happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to call out that laughter can be a really powerful tool on both ways.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in relationships where the person becomes the butt of the joke, not just in front of the person, but around their friends. And they're using, it's not even humour because it's not funny, but they're using it as a way to belittle someone and to put somebody in their place. And that's actually bullying.
It is. It is. I come across that an awful lot when I will get one of the spouses obviously come to me and they've just been victimised for so many years. It can be borderline narcissistic where you are constantly put down to make your ex-spouse more important. What would you say, again, around laughter is one of the biggest mistakes that couples make when they get stressed, when they're having an argument? what do you know, if you could be the fly on the wall in that moment, what's the biggest mistake that you identified? But also, how can people stop from making that mistake and just take a moment?
So the taking the moment is the important part, the pause. Our emotions are fleeting. What I mean by that is when we are highly emoted of any kind, happiness, anger, frustration, sadness, that emotion is flooding our body at that time. And it takes 60 or 90 seconds for that emotion to flood the body.
Okay.
And
It's fast.
it is fast. And people often say to me, really? I've held on to rage for a lot longer. I'm like, me too, I've done years. But we're not holding on to the rage or the emotion. We're holding on to the narrative that feeds that emotion, or the belief that feeds that emotion. So one thing I would always say to people is just stop, walk away. That's the most important thing, is pause. We often react to the reaction, which is the emotion. There's a difference between react and response. A response is a pause and a considered behaviour. Now, that's really hard to do in the moment, because our emotions are there to tell us something, and all emotions are important, all of them. But if we are just going and going and going, and we're wanting to win, that's not good. And so I'd really ask yourself, are you wanting to win this, or are you wanting to resolve it?
Yeah.
And resolve is better. And so that pause, stop, walk away if you can, wait till you've calmed down. You know, what are the things that you're doing? Think about the 4 Fs, the fight, flight, flock and freeze. Are you fighting with that person? Are you flocking? Are you going to people who are just backing up how you feel and speaking to them? Or have you got some really good friends who will be honest with you? Are you fleeing and not coming back? Because you do absolutely need to come back and converse when you're both calm.
Yeah.
Are you freezing, or are you just not doing anything about it? And that might be because of fright.
Yeah.
You know, and then that needs to be addressed as well. So what's happening, and are you reacting to one of those reactions?
Yeah. I've found, just speaking from personal experience, that as I've got older, I'm better at sort of caring less. When I was in my 20s and married, things would irritate me in the moment that don't bother me now, because I'm like, oh, is it worth it really? I'll just pick the bag up again for the millionth time. I'll just put the shoes away again. Like in the bigger picture, is it really worth starting an argument about? And then I think age does help with that, because you're able, as you get older, to look back and think, it doesn't really matter. You know, I talk about this, the difference between raising my first son and my 4th son. My first son, my goodness me, wrapped that boy in cotton wool. The 4th one, I think his older brothers raised him more so.
He's just feral. Just eating out the bin, but he's fine.
But as adults, they're both exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't, you know, I think all the heartache that I put myself through, as many mothers do with the first one, I think, why did I worry about that so much? Why did we argue about that so much? You know, I was very anal. And Brendan, don't do it that way, do it this way. Whereas the 4th, I was like, well, do it whatever way you like, because I've got these 3 to look after.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Would you say that helps, caring less and being a bit more lighthearted?
Yeah.
For the bigger picture stuff?
The lightheartedness is really important.
Yeah.
And also, I always talk about scales. Put it on the scales. You know, does the good outweigh the bad? If the good outweighs the bad, that's absolutely fine. It's when it starts to tip. And if that goodness means that, yes, you are taking the stuff up the stairs that you've left on the bottom of the stairs for an indication for others to take it up, but they just walk past it.
Yeah.
But, you know, if that means you taking that up and just not saying anything, but then they've done something, because I think we forget to see the good stuff.
Yeah.
And if we are in that mindset of they're this, they're that, then we look for that.
Yeah.
If we can shift that slightly and go, where's the balance? Because they are good. And where do I see that? Look, even in the darkest moments, even if we are going through the divorce, you know, we can always see, well, perhaps they were good ones, not all the time. I appreciate, you know, there's challenges. but then that helps you move forward
Yeah.
in a bit of a better way. And that lighter side of being able to laugh at each other, laugh at yourself, the nuances. I know I'm difficult.
Yeah.
I know I'm very particular about. I've got worse as I've got older.
Yeah, me too.
But Bobby laughs at it and he points it out. The words I say, I get my words mixed up still, and he'll point that out.
Yeah.
And so sometimes in an argument, I'll use completely the wrong words. And you can see him laughing. And I'm like, what are you laughing at?
Yeah.
And it's because I've got a word wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be serious. That stuff is important.
It's important. You hit on a really good point. I think in the moment, just before a row breaks out, you are very aware of how your spouse or your partner has made you feel.
Yeah.
And you are very defensive of that, hence the row. But actually, if you can take a moment and go, okay, he's done that which has really peed me off, but I bet there's loads of stuff that I've done that's peed him off and he hasn't said anything actually, because I'm not perfect in all of this either. And I think, again, age helps you realise that you're not brilliant.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You mentioned earlier on, and it's something that I do want to talk to you about because I struggle with this, about the importance of when you're an adult retaining the ability to be playful.
Yeah.
I think as a grown-up, as a mum, as a lawyer, that has almost been beaten out of me. And I really do feel silly when I have to be playful with adults. I can do it like that with kids, because I feel it's appropriate to be silly with kids, or my dogs. I can be really stupid and speak stupidly to my dogs, but with adults. So how do we retain that? How do we not feel silly to be playful? Because it's really important, you say, in a relationship.
Look, playfulness is how the brain develops. And particularly if we think about evolutionary psychology, children, particularly human children, they retain being children for a lot longer than any of the other animal kingdom. They need an adult. And the reason for that is because our brains are actually programmed to play, to be able to learn. So we need an adult to protect us while the brain develops in all that play. And what we think is, we've got to adulthood now, we don't need play anymore. But the opposite is true. We actually need play even more to be able to deal with the adult stresses and challenges that we have, but we take play away. And interestingly, what you say about lawyers, so research around lawyers particularly, because you've got a negativity bias to be looking for stuff, that's your role, that's your job, then that triggers you to look for that in the world, if you like. And so
true.
One of the most stressful jobs to have is being a lawyer because of the way.
Thank you, Steph. Acknowledgement.
If you've got a team, it's even worse. Unless they're a lovely team, of course. And so lots of research always indicates that lawyers particularly are in need of more play, if you like, or more support than perhaps other professions.
That's so interesting.
And so when we talk about play, everyone's different. So play might be for you literally playing tennis or doing some physical exercise, or it might be going and at the weekend with your kids playing charades. Put down the phones. The phones are killing our brains. They're taking away our ability to play, to be imaginative, to create. Play might be knitting. It might be spending time with your dog. It might be spending time with your cat. Whatever play is to you is important. Now, play between a couple, and we can talk about this from a sexual point of view, is really important. It might be play for doing silly things. One of the things I was on the Trisha show many years ago is the laughter expert with couples. And one of the things that we encourage them to do is to think about a past memory. So each one of you write it down. Something funny that made you laugh when you first met. And and you don't tell the other one what it is at all. But then perhaps, it might be, do you remember flumps? Do you
Yes.
remember in your
Yeah.
mouth or
Yeah.
lots of Maltesers or any sweets are available? As many as you can. And you have to then talk about what that memory is and the other person has to guess what it is.
Oh, I
and the
see.
laughter
Yeah.
that comes about. And it's just about what can you do to A, highlight the memories that you had that were fun.
Yeah.
And B, to bring it to life in a playful way. It might even be cooking together. Me and hubby, sometimes when we've got time, we haven't done it for a while, I'm quite competitive.
Yeah.
So we'll say, let's bake a cake and see who's is the nicest. And
Yeah.
I'll give it to my team and say, which cake, without knowing, is the nicest. And I'll give them a nudge and a wink to let them know it's mine because I pay the bills. So that's really important. But even things like that, what can you do together that's fun, that's away from the normal drudgery of housework, of bills, of telling the kids off, boundaries, all that stuff. What can you do that's away from that?
It's interesting because I hadn't thought of playfulness in that way. I thought of playfulness as goofing around, being really stupid, and I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Especially around other adults. I'm just not comfortable. To have you redirect my thought to actually playfulness could be cooking together.
Yeah.
It could be, as you say, going on a walk with the dogs and just sharing stories, our memories from, teenage years, even before we met, things like that.
Yeah.
That's, I think reframing it like that is it just gives it a new lease of life, shall we say.
Yeah.
Listening to you there about how we retain that makes me think it has to be a conscious effort. And I think this is where couples can also struggle. And before they come to see me, because we all have the mundane things that we don't like doing, the big food shop, the putting the bins out, the cleaning up the house, whatever it might be, but they have to be done because we're adults. And at the end of our day, when everything is done and we've ticked everything off, there is a moment where you can be so exhausted that you think, I will do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I will do it at the weekend. What would you say to couples that are very conscious the marriage is potentially coming to an end just because they're so tired, doing all that they need to do? How best to help them?
You're right. It's so easy to go, let's just sit in front of the TV and just watch that box rather than talk to each other.
Because it's easy.
Because it's easy. But what I'd say is actually we are motivated by doing stuff. We get what we get wrong is that motivation is something that someone has or doesn't have. There's a lovely part of the brain, it's called the blue dot, the locus something in Latin, but the blue dot is what it's called. And that's a group of cells. It's almost like your gear stick is the way to think about it. And if we're just sitting there watching TV, non-communicative to each other, that blue dot is in gear naught, if you like. If we just get up a little bit, start to say, let's switch off the TV just for tonight, 10 minutes, that's it, 10 minutes. Don't think it's got to be this huge thing. 10 minutes, and just let's have a chat about past memories or things that used to make us laugh, or let's turn off the TV and let's do something around, I don't know, if you've bought Maltesers. I don't know, I'm on Maltesers today. I had a pack last night. I'm like, very nice. Let's see how many Maltesers you can think you can get in your mouth at once, and I'll try and beat you. And that's it. And that's it. But what the blue then dot does is it goes, oh, we've moved up a gear. And so by moving up a gear, you get more motivation, and then you get a little release of dopamine and serotonin because you've done something that you enjoy together. So your brain goes, I like that. Let's have more of that. So you're more inclined to do it. Just getting started is the important thing, but make it simple. Don't put things in the way. And when I say make it simple, 10 minutes, really something that you can both do together. It might be sharing what you're reading at the moment together, just even having a conversation. 10 minutes of conversation.
Yeah.
What have you done today? What have you laughed at this week? What's made you laugh? What have you enjoyed? That's it.
See, that makes it so much more manageable. Because when you started by saying, well, why don't you switch off the TV? Instantly I was like, oh, really? And now I've got to think of something for the whole evening. Well, that's too much pressure. But just 5 or 10 minutes, well, I can do that. Absolutely. And I'm sure there's other couples out there thinking, oh, yeah, let's start with 5 or 10 minutes. It seems to me that what you're saying is just a very small change to the existing habit.
Yeah.
And the existing habit clearly isn't working if you're about to give the legal queen a call.
Yeah.
So just a slight tweak could potentially help save the marriage.
Yeah, and make those habits easy and durable. So like you said, if your habit is every night to sit down and just turn the TV on,
Yeah.
that habit, then just add something onto it. Don't change it, because it's harder to change habits than it is to add something on. So what you're saying...
Oh, interesting.
So the brain finds it hard to learn new stuff.
Yeah.
But if you add a habit on, if you hack that habit, so
Yeah.
every night, I don't know, 8 o'clock, the TV goes on. So 8 o'clock, we'll have 10 minutes of conversation. Then that becomes the new habit. Then you can start to add on to that habit. Okay, so we turn the TV on before we go to bed. We turn the TV off. You go to bed at this time. I go to bed at this time. We don't go to bed together. So just before we turn the TV off, let's turn it off 10 minutes before, and let's have a conversation then, or let's talk about what we want to do tomorrow, or what you're doing tomorrow. Then that forms a new habit. So you're adding on to habits that are already stuck.
Yeah. And I think what's really important is that if you're in a relationship and you have children, your behaviour, your children will mirror your behaviour.
Yeah.
So actually, if we're falling into the bad routines and we're not laughing and we're starting to lose our sense of self, our sense of humour about who we are, is it fair to say that the children will then pick up on that?
Yeah. And children will look to you to see what a healthy relationship looks like. And if you are healthy in the way that you communicate, you laugh together, even healthy in the way that you argue. And what I mean by that is we often think we should hide arguments from kids. And yes, you know, the more extreme ones, we absolutely should.
Yeah.
But what we need to do is show children how conflict can be resolved.
Yeah, that's really important.
And that's so healthy. And that's what creates happy children.
Yeah.
Knowing that, okay, mum and dad had a little argument, but they've resolved it. And now they're laughing together.
Yeah.
So that's really normal. So if I have a conflict with my friends or with my partner, I know that I can resolve it as well.
So let's do a deeper dive. Explain to me, and there'll be people watching that can't connect the dots. What is that connection between laughter and the psychology, the bit in the brain that makes us feel happy or sad? How does it all work?
So there's a lovely part of the brain. When we laugh, it lights up all the parts of the brain.
Yeah.
And there's a lovely part of the brain that stores memory, which is at the very back here, the hippocampus or the basal ganglia. And we can think about something that's made us laugh.
Yeah.
And it suddenly pulls that forward. And we experience it as if it's really happening. So it then starts to link up with the amygdala, which is the emotional part of the brain, and send out the dopamine, the oxytocin, the serotonin, and endorphins. They're key learning chemicals. Really? We can't learn without those chemicals. So I talk about the power of laughter for sticky learning. So when I started to think, well, these kids are enjoying this is why they're learning, there was actually a science to it as well. Then the psychology part of it is that if we enjoy something, we're more likely to engage with it.
Yeah.
But also the psychology of it is that actually when we engage with something, we get that dopamine hit because it works.
Yeah.
So we're more likely to be motivated to do it as well. So it does lots of different things. And I'm not saying that laughter is the answer to everything.
No.
Because it's not.
Yeah.
But it's the foundation of human glue that holds relationships together. And when I talk about relationships, I talk about it on a vast scale.
Yeah.
Relationship between the teacher and the learner, the relationship between the student and another student, the relationship between parent and child, between husband and wife, between wife and wife. Every single relationship, the relationship we have to learning is linked through laughter, through humour.
Yeah. Did you find, Steph, when you were working within schools, that the kids that, I mean, okay, they might have been naughty, but if there was any sort of home issues that then created a stress and anxiety within them, that your workshops were helping that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gave the children a break from what was going on. And what was really interesting with some of them, not all of them, some of them used that in their stand-up routines. So they used the humour as a way to create perspective on their own lives. And that was something that was a byproduct that I didn't even realise, because when I did my psychology course, you've got CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, which is a way of pausing and looking at the world differently, recognising your behaviours that are backing up your unhelpful thought process. Humour does that too. So humour allows you to take a step back, look at the situation differently, and therefore, because you're looking at it differently and feeling about it differently, you behave differently. So we even had parents saying, he's a completely different child.
Look at that. It's incredible when you dissect it the way you do, just the power of being lighthearted and having that sense of humour. It almost just fixes it all, doesn't it? I mean, I know that we've covered things on a surface level, but we've talked about the workplace, we've talked about children, how it helps their ability to learn. We've talked about marriages and you know, those marriages that are maybe failing. It seems to have no end to its value.
Well, laughter is so important. It was the first language we had as human beings. Before we even had words, the sounds of laughter were there as a way to express ourselves to people. And it might have been a laugh, because laughter isn't always about positive. Sometimes we laugh when we're shocked. Sometimes we laugh when we're frightened.
Nervous. I laugh when I'm nervous a little bit, yeah.
I mean, my sister's got a terrible habit of, if somebody's passed away, she laughs.
Does she?
You know, but it's a nervous, it's a nervous thing. And so laughter is a human essential tool, and humour is unique to humans. And it's our way of understanding the world. Even in classrooms, if a teacher made a mistake and then laughs at it, that tells children that mistakes are okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. So it's a psychology in itself. And that's why I talk about the psychology of humour and laughter.
Yeah.
Because it's so important.
It really is.
And we've moved away from it a lot in society. And I get workplaces and schools going, well, maybe the laughter's the warm-up bit.
Yeah.
And then we do the proper stuff afterwards. No, it should be integrated all the way through.
Would you say you can also apply this theory to employer-employee?
And that's what Laughology is built on.
Yeah.
And it's really important. When I very first started to realise this, I was invited into, I think it was Barclays. And
The bank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a teacher whose husband at the time worked in Barclays and said, my husband's really interested in you coming into his workplace to do something on leadership and laughter. And I was like, I was 21. We went, yeah, of course. And then, well, what? I don't know what that means, but I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
Went into this really grey corporate world and met this chap. And he was saying, I'd like our leaders to bring their leadership talks to life a little bit more and present in a humorous way. And I said, I'd like to observe them. So I went back and observed, and it was all this language that was completely bizarre to me. And big words, couldn't connect to it. And I said to him afterwards, I'm not sure I'm for you because that's not my language. And he said, that's why I want you to help. And the whole thing about comedy is comedians are brilliant linguists, so they'll change just one word to make you connect emotionally to something, whether that's a or ooh or ha. It's that emotional connection that's really important. And what I was noticing is in workplaces is we don't have that emotional connection. We're going, work's here, employee is here, and around that we've got all this corporate language. And so this first workshop I did at the bank was all about how we simplify language, how we talk to people normally, how we build those connections. And laughter's a part of that, and happiness is a big part of how we connect with our learning. And I don't mean fluffy happiness.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we can't have difficult conversations. It actually means we can. Because if we have the baseline of feeling safe, of good connections, we can do the other stuff. And so I trained this group of people. They presented, they loved it. And that's where we started into the corporate world about the importance and power of developing people to help your positioning, your brand, your strategy. Now, that was 20 odd years ago before, there was HR directors that really started to thought about learning and development in workplaces and people being the power. And so we were quite unique, not only in talking about people development, but laughter as part of that.
Yeah.
And so we were knocking on a lot of doors where people were going, but they got it once they saw it, once they experienced it.
So it's not as if you're teaching the leaders to be stand-up comedians. What are you doing that helps?
It can be anything from, so a leadership program that looks at how we use simple psychology to help lead people, but we deliver it all through playfulness and fun and laughter, because organisations spend a fortune on people development, and the majority of it doesn't stick. Either people don't turn up because it's not mandatory, or they come to the session, it's a little bit boring, they've been told to do it, and then
I've
they go
been to loads of them, and I'm like,
and
we're nearly done yet.
You're watching your clock, aren't you? But what we do at Laughology is we make it engaging, enjoyable. Now that, we have to toe the line, and all our team have a background in either psychology or stand-up comedy and organisational development. They all have to be trained in stand-up comedy. I mean, they have to be a little bit funny first. Do you know what I mean?
It's not going to work.
There are some people who come to interviews and we're like, oh, no. Just sitting there going, that's not going to work. Dad joke section.
Yeah.
But we make it playful as well by activities, not the dreaded role play.
Yeah.
But activities that bring it to life, about how the brain works and how you can manage your own emotions in your brain. And so a workshop might consist of how we help people to feel psychologically safe, but we'll explore what that means from a neuroscience perspective, and we'll do an activity that explores that, so people actually experience how it feels.
Yeah.
Rather than just sitting there doing it. And then there's a little bit of theory, and then talk about how you apply it in your own life. So we have a cadence of the way we deliver, but also we do lots of keynotes where we just get people interested in the topic or change. And we do brilliantly difficult topics simplified.
Yeah. And I think that's the key. A lot of the time people will say to me, the law's really difficult. It's really hard to understand. I love the way you break it down.
Yeah.
So again, I want to keep going deeper. If you were to come into my firm, it's not just a workshop you do with me to help me as the leader, but potentially with all of my solicitors, because they are also leaders for their support team. Would that be right?
That's absolutely right.
And would it be a different workshop for me, or would we all have the same workshop, me and all the solicitors? How does that work?
Every organisation's different.
Okay.
And we probably do a needs assessment. So really talk to you about what are the things that you need. So it might be that your leaders, we are doing, I don't know, feedback conversations or performance conversations. Not a funny subject at all.
Yeah.
And we've just rolled out a big programme in HSBC. So we do how do you give feedback? How do you have really good conversations with people and help them develop?
Yeah.
And then for the rest of the team, what organisations don't tend to do is they don't talk to people about how we take on feedback.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing giving it, there's nothing taking it on.
Of course, yeah.
And if we shift organisations, and there's a nuance here, from giving to asking for feedback, that's when you get a really engaged group of people.
Okay.
Who want to learn. So there's a shift between giving and actually asking, and that's when feedback comes up.
That's really interesting, because in my experience, I find that the more junior members aren't really asking for feedback.
Yeah.
but the more senior members are. Maybe because they've got a bit more confidence, they've got more responsibility, they've got a bit more to lose potentially if it's not going well. So I suppose what I'm learning from this is I need to be able to know that my junior members are also wanting to ask for feedback.
Yeah, and there's a real difference now with younger people coming through because we've had social media in their lives.
Yeah.
And their different levels of being able to accept feedback is probably needs a little bit more attention. So we do need to give more attention to that lower level to help educate them about how to receive feedback and how to ask for it. Because what we're hearing in workplaces is those more difficult conversations at that level can feel a little bit more like it's perhaps not accepted in the way that it's development.
Yeah.
And it's accepted in the way that it could be hurtful.
Yes.
And now giving it, there is a way that we can do it that is helpful, but it's about how we receive it as well.
Yeah. So effectively then the workshops will cover, and again I'm talking about the employment space, all levels.
Yeah.
Not just from your CEOs, but right down to your office junior.
Yeah.
Because as you say, the communication's travelling both ways.
Yeah, and that's when you get happy organisations. Yeah. And people often say to me, oh, is it not fluffy happiness? And I'm like, no. When I talk about happiness, it's about how we communicate, how we have great support networks in work and outside of work. Development is really good for the brain. That's what makes our brain happy. And coping skills. You know, you wrap all that up, and inclusion as well is an important part of that. That's a happy culture.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you can't have difficult moments. And, you know, I run a business. I've had to make people redundant.
Yeah.
That's not nice, but you can do it in the kindest way.
Yeah.
It might not feel like that for them at the time, but you can certainly do it in a way that feeds the values that you want to see.
And I really struggled to understand that when I met you in the green room, and I'm like, okay, what are you going to talk about? And you were sort of like, well, laughter in the workplace. I'm thinking, how does that work then? Because again, being a lawyer, I'm thinking we can't laugh. Like, we're dealing with people's emotions here. They're about to lose their home. Yeah. Here's a father who hasn't seen his children for a couple of years. This is highly inappropriate, actually, Steph. Yeah. But there was a part of me that was completely fascinated because I like to think I have a sense of humour. And I'm like, okay, how do I get this into my law firm? How do I help? Because I'm very conscious that my team here are listening to negative energy all day, every day. And we do have regular meetings where I'm saying to them, please leave it at the door, guys. Do not take this home. Not from a confidentiality point. I don't mean that. Obviously, we have to be confidential. But from a mental health point of view. And I think speaking to you today has made me appreciate that it's not that you're going to teach me to be a stand-up comedian. No. It's just about understanding that chemical release? Yeah. It's a chemical as opposed to a hormonal one, is that right?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. So some of them are hormonal and some of them are neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters can also be hormones as well. So your serotonin is a neurotransmitter, and it also boosts your estrogen in your brain as well.
Yeah. And clearly it works because you've built this entire business. I mean, your company's, 20 plus now and growing stronger and stronger. And is it all corporate that you do? Are we still helping the schools and the kids? Still doing it all, Steph? Goodness me.
So we've got 3 arms to the business.
Okay.
We've got the Laughology corporate arm.
Yes.
We've got Happy Centred Schools.
Yes.
And then we've got the Happiness Fund.
What's the Happiness Fund?
So we give away money to community projects that are helping communities to be happy. So, for example, one of our bits of funding was for young people who couldn't ride bikes because they had additional needs. So these bikes have been created for young people to learn to ride with their brothers and sisters so they can have the same experience. Yeah. And those bikes cost $5,000 each. So we have loads of applications at that time. I always say the Happiness Fund makes my team unhappy.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going, why?
Because of the admin.
Why? But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And this year we're giving away 20 grand for our 20th birthday.
Oh, wow.
So
Steph, that's so
lots of
good.
5 grand.
Look at that. So if there's people out there watching, whether it be business owners or school teachers, head teachers thinking, I want to get in on this because it clearly works, how is the best way to get in touch with you?
So go to the website, laughology.co.uk, and there's loads there. It's a brand new website. So
excellent.
There's a few gremlins in it at the moment, but do email info@laughology.co.uk and follow us on Instagram as well. And me on Instagram. Had to get that in there.
You had to get that in. Yeah. I'll get Billy to put all them links up. Now, you have kindly brought along your book for me today, Laughology. I flicked through it. I am going to read this weekend. But I noticed when I was flicking, there's a bit of work for me to do.
Yeah, well,
talk me through it.
That's what happens when a dyslexic writes a book. Because I thought, how can I get less words in this? I can make other people do the work.
What's this going to help me with? What's this going to help me appreciate and learn?
Well, when you actually talked about how do we help people with their mental health, there's a toolkit in there called Flip It Thinking, which is Laughology's model. And this is a big piece of research that came out of my master's about, like I talked about CBT, and humour's really similar, but in a different way. So FLIP is what I call your humour toolkit. And FLIP stands for focus, language, imagination and pattern breaking. And everything that we've talked about. So our autofocus as human beings is, how do I feel about this situation? How do I feel? That's how we view the world, how I feel. And that's how memories are made. If we can flip that and go, okay, yes, I feel like this, but is this a feeling or a fact? Or also, do I need to adjust my feelings to be able to respond to this better? So how do I feel better? And then come back to this. How do I talk about this in a different way, then come back to this? That focus shifts. And then we can start to focus sometimes on feeling more in control, because the biggest thing that causes stress and anxiety is feeling out of control.
Yeah.
And the more we feel out of control, the more the brain actually focuses on the fear, because then it starts to go, everything is a potential threat. But if we can feel better, we think better. When we think better, we take better actions and decisions. So F is for focus, and we take people through that.
Yeah.
Do some fun exercises. L is for language. Language is our most powerful tool in understanding the world. How I speak to you, how I speak to myself. We can quite often not be quite nice to ourselves in our own head, and we wouldn't say that to other people. So what is your internal dialogue saying? In psychology, they call it common cognitive errors, but I don't like big words, mainly because I can't remember it. So I just like to call it wonky, when your language is a little bit wonky.
Yeah.
I say that very carefully as a dyslexic, because it could be something else.
I'm going to say, we could have gone on a whole new path.
So is your language wonky to yourself, to other people? Is it wonky to your partner? You know, have you gone into that spiral? I is for imagination. It's that creativity, that playfulness. Quite often we do what we've always done. The brain loves patterns.
Yeah.
Humour interrupts patterns. We can be playful in our brain, and that's where imagination kicks in. What is possible? What's the art of possible?
Yeah.
If we wrap humour around it, anything's possible, and then we bring it back, because we get stuck in reality. And humour allows us to open that up and be playful with reality, and then we go, maybe that is an idea. So it makes us from being stuck to being unstuck. And then P is for pattern breaking. We can only get a different outcome if we shift our focus, language, or how we think in our imagination. So how do we flip it? And that's our humour toolkit.
And when you break it down like that, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. I think what I've got out of this today, Steph, is it doesn't have to be such a big task. Start small, bite-sized chunks, and just keep laughing, I think.
Absolutely. Find stuff to laugh about. Be conscious to make that effort to find your laughter triggers, your humour triggers, together with your partner, with your children, with your team. Once a week, ask, what are the things that made you laugh? That will make a big difference in your culture.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Steph.
It's a pleasure.